Howdy and welcome back. Today we're going to be jumping into creating pickup items that we can come across into our world, pick up and interact with. And so the first thing that we want to do is, in our case, we want to have two pickup items, in my case, the weapons, our rifle and then the axe. The first thing I want to do is actually go over to the weapon layer, and I'm going to delete the rifle. Now, this is going to cause a couple of problems with the game because of how we've had certain portions written out. For instance, whenever we swing the axe, it deletes the rifle, but there's no rifle to delete. And so the axe activity won't fire properly, and it'll cause other issues because our way to determine the end of our attack state is the axe finishing. So I move around just fine. I left click. Of course, we don't have an axe or a rifle, so nothing can hit. But I right click, and now I no longer have control of movement because I am stuck in the attack state. So we have a couple of things that we're going to have to update. First, let's go into our scripts. In our free state, we only enter the attack state if we have the ability to perform these attacks. And so if I'm going to create two variables and update them in our player, but the first variable that I'm going to reference is has axe. If they have the axe and key attack and on floor, then I can perform the attack. Over in our attack state, well, if the rifle exists, we destroy it. And that portion works out fine. However, I'm going to move this part out of here. Instead, if has rifle, or actually no, this part is if instance exists of the obj underscore axe. If our axe exists in the world, then we're going to have our instance create layer and create the axe weapon here. So if it has a rifle, we delete that. If there's no rifle, nothing happens. Doesn't matter. Everything's okay there. But here, if there is not an axe that we're swinging, then create a new axe for us to swing. All right. That's good so far. We now have two updates in our scripts. The other updates that need to be made is in our objects. The axe at our animation in this adds back in the rifle, but we only want this to actually occur if there is a rifle to be added back, if the player is supposed to have the rifle. So inside here, if an instance exists of the obj player, if the player does actually exist here, shift this over, this is relevant for the future, but if there is a player still around at this point, player state gets turned back to free, and then let's move this outside. This portion is going to check if the player dot has rifle. If this is true, then and only then do we create the rifle back. So at the end of my swing, I check if the player has a rifle. If the player does have the rifle, then I'll rebuild the rifle for them. Otherwise, all we do is just change the state, skip that part, and delete the axe now that we've completed the swing. Well, we now have all these things referencing has rifle or has axe. Well, let's go into our actual player and in our create event, address those. And so this weapons has axe. I'm going to set that to false at the start. And then has rifle, set that also to false at the start. We have no weapons starting off in the game. Now, I want to have these to be picked up. Well, I want to create a separate sprite for our axe because we have an axe swing, but we don't have one just for the axe. The way I'm going to do this, I'm actually just going to copy this frame. Let me duplicate this. This is just going to be called axe. And inside here, actually, I don't know why I did that. Copying, I just duplicated it and I delete the rest of these. And we just have this static one. Let me make sure the collision mask. Yeah, collision's fine. So we now have the axe. Now that we have our sprites, let's go ahead and create these. Or first, let's make sure that the game works properly now that we've updated the code. And then we're going to work on adding the pickup items. And there we go. So far, so good. All right, enter the testing room. Okay, everything's working. I can move left and right. I'm shooting. It's not working, of course. I right click for swing the axe. Nothing is happening. Okay, everything is good. Press F, text works out. All right, now we've got that. Let's go ahead and create a new object. I'm going to create something brand new conceptually. I'm going to create another object, but this I want to have as a parent object. Call it parent, and then I'm going to call it pickup. The way parent objects work is, if you notice this thing says parent here, is that you can relate objects to each other. Object can have a parent, it can have a child. The child inherits properties and functionality from its parent. Because I intend to have multiple things that get picked up, rather than having duplicate codes, several of which go beyond the scope of just having it in a script, I'm going to have a parent of object. So our parent object here is actually going to be addressing all of the things that we're going to have pick up. And there's just going to be 2 steps to this, or 2 events. We just have our step event. And this will have it float. Let me move this over. Minimize this, and this. Zoom in. Okay, there we go. This will address our ability for floating. And this is simply going to modify the Y value of our item. So it checks where is the Y at the start of this. And then it's plus sign times get timer, figures out however many milliseconds have passed. And divide this by 5 million. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. No, 500,000. And multiply this by 5. So for those of you who took trig, the way sine works is it creates a oscillating pattern of a wave. And so this will have our Y value follow this pattern and go up and down to make it appear like it's floating. We only modify Y, so that gets the float effect. Then I'm going to add a collision event with the player. And so this is to delete self. When we collide with the player, I simply do instance destroy So that way, as soon as I run into something or get run into by the player, I delete myself. Now, this just covers what all of them will do. They'll all float and they'll all delete themselves. Now I'm going to create children for this. I'm going to create a object. This is going to be obj rifle pickup. This is, of course, going to just have the rifle sprite. Where is it? There we go. And I'm going to specify the parent for this. The parent is, of course, our parent pickup. And inside here, I have the events. It tells me exactly what I do by default. Well, I want to actually modify our collision. I'm going to inherit this event. So it'll call that other stuff down here. What I want to do here is add rifle. Or give player rifle. Give player rifle. So I've been picked up. So obj underscore player dot has rifle is now set to true. They have now picked up the rifle, and I'm going to have instance create layer. I'm going to specify at this X and Y value. Kind of doesn't matter because the rifle in its own code throws it to where it's supposed to be. In the weapon layer, I'm going to have obj underscore rifle gets placed. So now the player is now marked as having a rifle, and I throw them the rifle. Now that portion is good to go. I'm going to create another object. This is going to be obj underscore and axe pickup. This will have just the axe. This is why I created the separate string, because I don't want to do the animation. I just wanted to have just the axe. And it will have a parent of the parent pickup. I get all the same stuff, but in here, of course, I want to inherit the event. And this is going to use player axe. This one, all I need to do is obj underscore player dot has axe and set this to now true. And that's all I need to do, because of course, swinging the axe is a separate ordeal in itself, but we just change this variable and the player now has the option to swing the axe. It'll now recognize the right click to get this done. Now that I have my objects and you see the relation with the parent, getting those values from it, it makes it easy. Now, there's a couple of things we probably could have restructured from our other code to inherit properties, but we didn't want to start with that because I wanted to walk y'all through everything. In the future, this is something you should keep in mind as you build up stuff to see where things are related to each other. So for stuff that doesn't go into scripts, you can have full objects serving as parents that then have children, so that way they can inherit those events. Now, let's go back to our testing room and let's go ahead and throw in a couple of objects. So I'm in the weapon layer, and let me go ahead and throw the axe right here and the rifle pickup over here. Then let's go ahead and jump into this. And it's working. Jump into our testing room. Left click, right click, none of it's interacting. I jump down to the axe. Picked it up. Now I can swing. It's working. I move down further. Text box still tells me what level I'm at. Press the letter. It's now gone. Now I can get to, I can swing, still hit them. I can get to this, and now I have the gun, and everything is working correctly. And now we have full functionality for all of this. Now we have a way to have pickup items, and so you can add power-ups, different things. All you need to do is address whether they have it, and based off them having it, let them do something with it. And so it's just a matter of you writing the code to support all of that. But this is how you can have a pickup item. And since we have the parent object for parent underscore pickup, you can just inherit those properties by building a child of it that does something and grants some new thing to the player. Otherwise, that's all we've got for today. If you have any questions or need any assistance, just let me know. Otherwise, everyone have a good one.